Once you have a dataset loaded into EasyMorph from a source system, database, or file, the first thing you might want to do is to profile the data to see if it contains what you expect and to get an idea of the data quality. EasyMorph contains many tools which allow you to profile your data in detail. The first of these tools is the cell profiler, which allows you to look at a specific value in a single cell of a table. To access the cell profiler, right-click on any value in a table and select Profiler from the menu. The cell profiler shows the data type of the selected value, as well as additional information depending on the data type. As an example, for this numeric value, we can also see how many decimal places the value has. With the cell profiler dialog open, I can click on other values in any cell of the table, allowing me to profile lots of values very quickly. If I click on a text value, I can see how the additional information given changes to show me the length of the text, as well as if there are any leading or trailing spaces within the cell, which may be a data quality issue. The next tool available to us to profile data is the column profiler dialog. To open the dialog, right-click on the column heading and select Filter Profile from the menu. As you can see, the column profiler dialog has many more features, but just like the cell profiler dialog, I can click on other columns to quickly profile those also. Within the column profiler dialog, there are several tabs, the first of which is the Values tab. This allows us to see a list of distinct values in the column, and unlike many other data tools, this is the full list of possible values, not just a sample. As well as viewing the values, I'm also able to apply filters to my table to restrict it to one or more specific values. There are 3 ways to define these filters, the first of which is to simply select the values I want from the list by selecting the checkboxes next to the values I'm interested in. If my list is very long, I can also search for values I'm interested in, and again, once I find the value I want, I can select the checkbox next to it. Once I've selected all the values I need, clicking on the Create Filter button will add a filter action to my table, restricting it to just those values I chose. If I go back to the column profiler dialog, I can also define a filter based on a search. This differs from searching in the selection filter mode in that it effectively filters on all values which match the given search string rather than me selecting values. If I enter a search and click on the preview button, I can see a preview of the values that match the given search. Just as before, I can click on Create Filter to add a filter action to my table. The last filter mode is to add a filter based upon a condition. Clicking on the FX icon will open the EasyMorph expression editor, and I am able to enter a very complex condition using any field, parameter, or function available in EasyMorph. Once defined, I can also preview the results of my condition, and clicking on the Create Filter button will once again add an action to my table. The next tab in the column profiler dialog is the Profile tab. This tab provides us with information about the data types of the values within the column. As you can see in this example, the majority of the records contain a number, of which almost all are integers. There are, however, 2 records which contain text, and 1 which contains a number that is not an integer. These values are therefore likely to be issues with the data quality. I can also see additional information such as the minimum and maximum length of text values, as well as the minimum and maximum and total of all numeric values. Again, this can help me to identify where a column may contain values that you do not expect, and therefore may be a data quality problem. Next to each of the breakdowns are filter icons, and as you may expect, clicking on any of them will add the relevant action to my table, filtering it to just those records. The next tab is the histogram tab, which provides a visual representation of the distribution of numeric values in the column. This can be really useful for discovering outliers, which are much smaller or larger than the rest. Resizing the dialog will change the size of the bins, also known as buckets, that the values are broken down by. The red minimum and maximum markers can also be dragged to select a range of values we're interested in. And once defined, clicking on Filter Range will add a filter action to my table, restricting it to just those values within the range. The Suggestions tab shows us if there are any potential data quality problems that EasyMorph has identified within the column. As you can see, EasyMorph is showing us that there may be a text value in the data that could actually be numeric. Clicking on the filter button will yet again add a filter action to our table. Going back to the Suggestions tab, we also see a Fix button. This button isn't available for all problems, only those which EasyMorph thinks it can solve for us. If we click on the button, instead of adding a filter action, one or more actions will be added which resolve the issue. And finally, the last tab in the Column Profiler dialog is the Metadata tab, which provides additional information and settings for the column. As well as the cell and column profilers, EasyMorph also allows you to profile an entire table. Right-clicking on any action and selecting Table Metadata opens the Table Metadata dialog, which provides an overview of the data types and values in the entire table. The number of rows and columns, the data types, the uniqueness, and even the minimum and maximum numeric and text lengths are also covered. Because I can view this dialog for any action in a table, it can also be helpful to track how data quality is affected by each transformational step. As well as viewing the metadata dialog, it is also possible to add the table metadata action to any EasyMorph table in my workflow. You can select which information you want, which will be generated as a table in EasyMorph instead. You can then add other actions as desired, such as outputting the information to an Excel or CSV file.